Picture this. You're kayaking down a peaceful river when suddenly, a log floating nearby isn't a log at all. It's 40 feet of pure prehistoric nightmare with jaws that could snap a small car in half. But here's the terrifying part. That nightmare actually existed, and it makes today's crocodiles look like house pets. This is the story of Sarcosuchus, better known as Super Croc. And absolutely nothing about this ancient monster was normal. Not its size, not its hunting methods, not even the world it lived in. And by the time we're done exploring this creature, you'll understand why modern crocodiles are basically the consolation prize evolution gave us after the real giants disappeared. But before we dive into the jaws of madness, if you're fascinated by prehistoric predators that could have eaten entire ecosystems for breakfast, smash that like button and subscribe, because we're about to journey back to a time when Earth was ruled by creatures that make horror movies look like bedtime stories. Let's start with size, because with Sarcosuchus, size is everything. Modern saltwater crocodiles max out at around 20 feet and weigh about a ton. Impressive, sure, but Sarcosuchus laughed at those numbers. This beast stretched nearly 40 feet from snout to tail and weighed as much as a school bus. We're talking about 12 tons of armored death machine that could have used a great white shark as a toothpick. But here's what blows my mind. How do scientists even figure out how massive an extinct animal was from just fossilized fragments? It's not like they found a complete skeleton with a measuring tape next to it. The answer lies in something called allometric scaling. Basically, certain body parts grow in predictable proportions. If you know the size of a skull or a single vertebra, you can extrapolate the entire animal's dimensions using mathematical models based on living relatives. When paleontologist Paul Sereno first laid eyes on Sarcosuchus skull fragments in the Sahara Desert, he knew he was looking at something extraordinary. The skull alone measured 6 feet long. For context, that's longer than most people are tall. And it wasn't just big, it was built like a biological battering ram, with bone thickness that would make a rhinoceros jealous. The discovery happened in Niger, Africa, in rocks dating back roughly 110 million years to the Middle Cretaceous period. This was a time when the Sahara wasn't a desert at all, but a vast network of rivers and wetlands teeming with life. And ruling over this aquatic kingdom was Sarcosuchus, the undisputed apex predator of its world. Now here's where things get really interesting. Sarcosuchus wasn't just a giant version of modern crocodiles. It was something entirely different, something that challenges everything we think we know about crocodilian evolution. Modern crocs are ambush predators that rely on explosive bursts of speed to catch prey. They're built for short, violent encounters. But Sarcosuchus? This thing was built for war. The skull tells an incredible story. Unlike modern crocodiles with their relatively narrow snouts designed for fish and small prey, Sarcosuchus had a massive, robust skull that could handle anything it wanted to bite. The jaw muscles alone would have been larger than a person. Bite force estimates put it at over 18,000 pounds per square inch. To put that in perspective, a great white shark bites at around 4,000 psi. T-Rex clocked in at 12,000. Sarcosuchus could have crushed both of them. But the really crazy part? The teeth. Modern crocodiles have sharp, pointed teeth for gripping and tearing. Sarcosuchus had those too, but it also had something else. Massive, crushing teeth in the back of its jaws. This wasn't just a fish eater or even just a dinosaur hunter. This was an animal designed to take on absolutely anything in its environment, including other massive predators. And speaking of environment, let's talk about the world Sarcosuchus called home, because it was nothing like our planet today. The Middle Cretaceous was a hothouse Earth. Global temperatures were so high that there were no ice caps anywhere on the planet. Forests grew at the poles, and in what is now the Sahara Desert, massive river systems stretched for thousands of miles. These weren't the seasonal rivers we see today. These were year-round waterways as wide as the Mississippi, flowing through lush forests filled with dinosaurs. Imagine crocodile habitat on steroids. Endless shallow waters, perfect for ambush hunting. Dense vegetation providing cover. And most importantly, an absolute buffet of prey wandering down to drink. The fossil evidence paints an incredible picture. Alongside Sarcosuchus, paleontologists have found remains of massive fish, some over 10 feet long, giant turtles the size of small cars, and dinosaurs. Lots and lots of dinosaurs. This was an ecosystem where everything was supersized, and Sarcosuchus sat at the very top of the food chain. But here's what really sets Sarcosuchus apart from modern crocodiles. Growth patterns. Modern crocs grow quickly when they're young, then slow down as they age. They're essentially done growing by the time they reach adult size. But Sarcosuchus? This thing never stopped growing. Bone analysis shows that even the largest specimens were still actively growing when they died, which means the 40-foot monsters we found, they might not have even been fully grown. Think about that for a second. The largest predator we know of from the age of dinosaurs might have been a teenager. Some estimates suggest that a fully mature Sarcosuchus could have reached 50 feet or more. We're talking about an animal that would have made T-Rex think twice about going for a drink. Now let's talk hunting strategy, because this is where Sarcosuchus gets really terrifying. Modern crocodiles are patient ambush predators. They float motionless for hours, waiting for something to come within striking distance. When they attack, it's a lightning-fast lunge powered by their massive tail. But at Sarcosuchus's size, this strategy needed some modifications. First, the physics of being 40 feet long and weighing 12 tons means you can't just explode out of the water like a modern crocodile. That kind of mass doesn't accelerate quickly. But what Sarcosuchus lacked in speed, it more than made up for in sheer overwhelming force. When this thing moved, nothing could stop it. The attack would have been like getting hit by a freight train with teeth. The massive skull would slam into prey with enough force to shatter bones instantly. Those crushing teeth would clamp down with 18,000 pounds of pressure per square inch. And then came the death roll. Modern crocodiles spin to disorient prey and tear off chunks of meat. When Sarcosuchus did it, the result would have been catastrophic. But here's the really genius part of Sarcosuchus's hunting strategy. It didn't need to be fast because it could hunt prey that couldn't escape. Large dinosaurs coming down to drink couldn't exactly turn on a dime. Once they were committed to approaching the water's edge, they were in Sarcosuchus territory. And in that shallow vegetation-choked environment, there was nowhere to run. Fossil evidence suggests that Sarcosuchus might have actually worked the shoreline like a modern crocodile, but on an industrial scale. Instead of grabbing small prey and retreating to deep water, it could have simply dragged massive dinosaurs right into the shallows and finished them off there. No need for the complex underwater maneuvers modern crocs use. Just brute force and overwhelming size. And here's something that gives me chills. Trackway evidence from the same time period shows large dinosaur footprints approaching riverbanks, then just stopping. No return tracks, no signs of struggle. Just animals that went to drink and never came back. That's the signature of an ambush predator so effective, so perfectly adapted to its environment, that it left no trace of its kills except empty spaces in the fossil record. If you're enjoying this journey into the world of prehistoric apex predators, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe because we're just getting started with the terrifying world of Super Croc. But Sarcosuchus wasn't just about brute force. This animal showed signs of sophisticated behavior that would make modern crocodiles look simple by comparison. Skull analysis reveals enlarged brain cases compared to body size, suggesting higher intelligence than typical crocodilians. This wasn't just a mindless eating machine. This was a thinking predator. Evidence suggests Sarcosuchus might have engaged in complex social behaviors. Multiple skulls found in the same geological formations show wear patterns that could indicate interaction between individuals. Some paleontologists theorize these giants might have cooperated during hunts, working together to take down the largest dinosaurs. Picture this scenario. Two 40-foot Sarcosuchus working in tandem. One blocks the prey's escape route back to dry land, while the other attacks from deeper water. With that level of coordination, even the largest sauropods wouldn't be safe. A single Sarcosuchus might struggle with a 60-foot Paralititan, but two of them? Game over. The fossil record also hints at territorial behavior. Bite marks on Sarcosuchus skulls suggest these animals fought each other, possibly over prime hunting territories. When you're the apex predator in an ecosystem, the only thing that can challenge you is another member of your own species. And let's talk about reproduction because even that was extreme with Sarcosuchus. Modern crocodiles build nests and guard their young, but they're dealing with eggs the size of chicken eggs. Sarcosuchus eggs were massive. Some estimates suggest they were larger than footballs. A single clutch could contain dozens of these giant eggs. But here's the terrifying part. Baby Sarcosuchus weren't helpless little creatures like modern crocodile hatchlings. They emerged from eggs already the size of small modern crocodiles. These weren't babies that needed protection. These were instant predators capable of taking down substantial prey from day one. Growth rates would have been phenomenal. Estimates suggest that young Sarcosuchus could have grown several feet per year during their first decade of life. By the time they were 10 years old, they would already be larger than most modern crocodiles ever get. And they would keep growing for potentially another 50 years or more. This creates an interesting ecological dynamic. In modern crocodilian populations, adults sometimes eat juveniles. But with Sarcosuchus, the size differential between adults and young wasn't as extreme. A 10-year-old Sarcosuchus might have been perfectly capable of defending itself against older individuals, creating a more complex social structure. Climate analysis from the Cretaceous period reveals why creatures like Sarcosuchus could exist. Average global temperatures were 10 to 15 degrees Celsius warmer than today. The enhanced greenhouse effect meant that even polar regions experienced subtropical climates. For cold-blooded reptiles, this was paradise. Higher temperatures meant higher metabolic rates. Sarcosuchus could have maintained an active lifestyle year-round, hunting continuously without the seasonal dormancy that limits modern crocodiles in temperate climates. The warm climate also supported the massive ecosystems needed to feed such enormous predators. River systems in the Cretaceous were also different from today. Instead of the seasonal flooding and drought cycles that characterize many modern rivers, Cretaceous waterways maintained consistent high water levels. This created vast shallow areas perfect for ambush hunting, with countless oxbow lakes and backwaters where large prey had to come to drink. The vegetation was also ideal for Sarcosuchus. Dense ferns and early flowering plants created tangled shoreline environments with limited visibility. Prey approaching the water couldn't see what was waiting beneath the surface until it was far too late. But perhaps most importantly, the Cretaceous ecosystem was incredibly productive. The warm, humid climate supported enormous food webs. Everything from tiny fish to massive sauropod dinosaurs existed in numbers that could sustain apex predators like Sarcosuchus. Modern ecosystems simply don't have the productivity to support 40-foot crocodilians. So what happened to these incredible creatures? Why aren't there 40-foot crocodiles cruising our rivers today? The answer lies in one of the most dramatic climate shifts in Earth's history. Around 90 million years ago, global temperatures began to cool. It wasn't sudden. This was a gradual process that played out over millions of years. But for creatures like Sarcosuchus, it was a death sentence. As temperatures dropped, metabolic rates slowed. These massive animals needed enormous amounts of food just to maintain their body temperature and basic functions. Slower metabolisms meant longer times between meals, reduced hunting effectiveness, and decreased reproductive success. The giant ecosystems that supported Sarcosuchus began to collapse as climate change altered river systems and reduced overall productivity. The age of the super crocodiles was coming to an end. The cooling trend accelerated during the late Cretaceous. By the time the asteroid impact occurred 66 million years ago, most of the mega-crocodilians had already disappeared. The impact itself was just the final nail in the coffin for an ecosystem that was already under severe stress. Modern crocodiles survived because they were smaller and more adaptable. They could adjust to cooler temperatures by becoming less active. They could survive in seasonal environments by entering periods of dormancy. Most importantly, they required far less food to maintain their body weight. But every now and then, we get hints of what the world lost when Sarcosuchus disappeared. Exceptional crocodile specimens turn up that push the boundaries of what we thought was possible. The largest saltwater crocodiles approach the minimum size estimates for juvenile Sarcosuchus. They remind us that crocodilians still have the genetic potential for gigantism locked away in their DNA. Recent discoveries continue to reveal new aspects of Sarcosuchus biology. Advanced CT scanning of skull fragments has revealed details about brain structure, sensory capabilities, and bite mechanics that weren't visible with traditional analysis methods. Each new piece of evidence paints a picture of an animal that was even more sophisticated and terrifying than we initially realized. One of the most recent discoveries involves evidence of pack hunting behavior. Bite marks on large dinosaur bones show attack patterns consistent with multiple large crocodilians working together. The spacing and angles of the marks suggest coordinated attacks by animals of Sarcosuchus' size. If this evidence holds up, it would revolutionize our understanding of crocodilian behavior. Modern crocodiles occasionally engage in group feeding, but true cooperative hunting is extremely rare. Sarcosuchus might have been capable of complex social behaviors that modern species have lost. The implications are staggering. Pack-hunting Sarcosuchus could have taken down absolutely anything in their environment. Even the largest sauropods would be vulnerable to coordinated attacks by multiple 40-foot predators. The Cretaceous rivers might have been even more dangerous than we imagined. And here's something that should make every modern river seem a lot safer. Sarcosuchus represents the absolute upper limit of crocodilian evolution. These animals push the boundaries of what's physically possible for a semi-aquatic predator. They were biological masterpieces, perfectly adapted to their environment, and utterly unstoppable in their element. The fossil record shows us glimpses of their dominance. River deposits from the Cretaceous are filled with broken dinosaur bones bearing crocodilian bite marks. Entire fossil assemblages show the signature of large predator activity. Sarcosuchus didn't just live in these ancient rivers. They controlled them completely. But perhaps the most sobering lesson from Sarcosuchus is how quickly apex predators can disappear when their environment changes. These animals ruled their world for millions of years, seemingly unstoppable and perfectly adapted. Yet when climate shifted beyond their tolerance limits, they vanished completely. Modern conservation biologists study creatures like Sarcosuchus to understand how environmental changes affect apex predators. The lessons are clear. Even the most successful predators are vulnerable to habitat loss and climate change. The largest, most specialized species are often the first to disappear when ecosystems are disrupted. Today's crocodilians face similar pressures. Habitat destruction, climate change, and human interference are pushing many species toward extinction. The giants of the crocodilian world, like saltwater crocodiles and Nile crocodiles, are increasingly confined to shrinking territories. Looking at Sarcosuchus reminds us what we stand to lose. These modern species, impressive as they are, represent just a shadow of crocodilian potential. The truly massive predators, the ecosystem engineers that shaped entire river systems, are gone forever. But the story of Sarcosuchus isn't just about loss. It's about the incredible diversity of life that evolution can produce given the right conditions. For a brief moment in geological time, Earth supported predators that dwarf anything alive today. It's a reminder that our planet has hosted creatures more magnificent and terrifying than anything in our wildest imagination. The next time you see a crocodile basking on a riverbank, remember Sarcosuchus. Remember that this modest predator carries the genetic legacy of giants. In its DNA are the blueprints for creating monsters that could swallow small boats whole. Evolution has that potential locked away, waiting for the right environmental conditions to unleash it again. And who knows? Climate change is pushing global temperatures higher. River systems are expanding in some regions. Maybe, millions of years from now, some descendant of today's crocodiles will rediscover the secret of growing to Sarcosuchus proportions. Maybe the age of super crocodiles isn't over forever. Until then, we have the fossils, the scientific discoveries, and our imagination. Sarcosuchus reminds us that Earth's history is filled with creatures that challenge our understanding of what's possible. They show us that evolution is capable of producing predators so perfect, so utterly dominant, that they reshape entire ecosystems around their presence. If this journey into the world of prehistoric apex predators has left you hungry for more incredible discoveries from Earth's deep past, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Every subscription helps us continue exploring the most fascinating creatures that ever lived, from the terrifying predators of ancient seas to the gentle giants that once roamed prehistoric forests. And speaking of incredible prehistoric creatures, there's so much more to discover. The age of dinosaurs produced predators and prey species that make modern wildlife look tame by comparison. Giant marine reptiles that dwarfed blue whales. flying reptiles with wingspans larger than small aircraft. Land predators that make today's big cats seem like house pets. Remember to ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest expeditions into the incredible world of paleontology. Whether we're diving into the deepest ocean trenches of the Mesozoic, or soaring through ancient skies with pterosaurs the size of giraffes, there's always another incredible story waiting to be told. The story of Sarcosuchus is ultimately a story about the power of time and environment to shape life into forms we can barely comprehend. These weren't just large crocodiles. They were evolutionary masterpieces, predators so perfectly adapted to their world that they dominated it completely for millions of years. Their disappearance reminds us that even the mightiest creatures are vulnerable to environmental change. But their existence proves that evolution can create wonders beyond our wildest dreams. Somewhere in the genetic code of every modern crocodile lies the potential for greatness, the blueprint for growing into a 40-foot river dragon that could swallow dinosaurs whole. That's the magic of paleontology. It shows us worlds we never could have imagined, creatures that push the boundaries of what we thought was possible. Sarcosuchus existed. It ruled ancient rivers with absolute authority, and for a brief shining moment in Earth's history, it was the most terrifying predator on the planet. The fossils don't lie. The calculations check out. The evidence is overwhelming. Nothing about Sarcosuchus was normal, and that's exactly what makes it so extraordinary. In a world of giants, it was the giant among giants. In an age of predators, it was the ultimate predator. And in the long history of crocodilians, it represents the absolute pinnacle of what these incredible animals can become. So the next time someone tells you that crocodiles haven't changed much over millions of years, remember Sarcosuchus. Remember that evolution is capable of producing creatures so magnificent and terrifying that they redefine what we think is possible. Remember that our planet once hosted predators that make every monster movie seem quaint by comparison. That's the true legacy of Super Croc. Not just as a prehistoric curiosity, but as proof that life on Earth has been far stranger, far more wonderful, and far more terrifying than we ever dared imagine.